On today's show, Spencer Dinwiddie has been awesome on the court. How has he been such a great fit so soon? Plus, he talked about his time with Washington and spilled the entire tea about his time with the Wizards. Why has Dallas been so different for him so far? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and contributor at Mavs.com, the Dinwiddie winner, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
All right, Nick. You went to the game over the weekend. The fun game, kind of fun game.
The second half was fun. It was very fun.
Say it was a big win, but it was at least a fun second half, fun fourth quarter. But you have a scarf over the top of your head. This came from the game, right? Like what? How did you get this scarf? Because I've seen a million fans with this scarf.
So yeah, it was Slovenia night. Luka did not play in, which is just wild on Saturday. And so it was Slovenia night. They had these scarves they were passing out. Somebody left this one because I didn't get there early enough to get one. So somebody left this. Always check the rows around you if you go to Mavs games. Always check this. There's going to be just stuff. You and I found like all these posters. We found like all these Dirk towels and stuff that Dirk's night. And so, yeah, always check around you. But yeah, I went to the game, got to go as a fan. Love the energy. Just the energy around you. There was so many random Kings fans around me in the arena where I was sitting. Wow. It was just so strange, but incredible experience seeing basically Dorian hit a game-winning shot, which I was telling my wife during the game. I was like, that's my favorite Maverick right there. I just went for it.
Love it.
Dorian's my favorite Maverick, and then he hit a game winner. It was incredible. But on today's show, we got to talk about the guy that made an incredible impact in that game, and that's Spencer Dinwiddie. We'll talk about why he has been so good for the Mavericks, why his transition has been so easy, and he had an incredible quote after that Kings game that we're going to get into. Then we'll talk about why this team has been so resilient. There's a stat that Mavs.com has been tweeting out that the Mavericks have trailed by 10 points or more in 13 games this year and have come back to win in those games. That's incredible. How has this team changed that so much? I went back and looked into the numbers, so we'll get to that. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the Utah game coming up tonight, because that is a pretty big one for the Mavs. But Spencer Dinwiddie, he's been so good for the Mavs so early. It's been wild to see how seamlessly he's fit in. The shot has been great for him. That was a big question that you keep raising about, can he hit can he hit an open shot? Can he hit a three? He's hitting pull-up shots. He's hitting catch and shoot shots. I mean, he is just
41% from three so far with the Mavs.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing to see. And he's just fitting into his role. He's not trying to push too much. Now, it is only 7 games in, right? We're gonna pump the brakes a tiny bit on it and not say that, oh, he's incredible, blah, blah, blah. One of the greatest, Mavs guards. Like, where do we put him in the echelon? Like, we're not doing that.
I'm not ready to say he's the second star. Some people tweeted at me that the other night. I'm not ready to say he's the second star for Luka.
Yeah, like, is he taking Brunson's spot already? Like, let's calm down on that. Brunson helped that game a lot too. And the two of them in tandem have been incredibly good. Like, I think their net rating right now is plus 20, which is insane. For those two guys on the court in a decent amount of time so far. But Dinwiddie had a comment after the game about his time in Washington, about why he has fit so well into this Maverick system already. And as I said in the intro, he spilled the entire tea. You have to listen to this. Yeah. We'll play it and let's go ahead.
Well, I was going to give a little preface to it of a little context that there were reports of him coming out of Washington, once the trade happened, that team, I think Kevin O'Connor said at the Ringer that he had heard that teammates didn't want him there. And it became this, as soon as the trade happened.
Not just that they didn't want him there, they didn't like him. That was the Kevin O'Connor report. We talked about that.
The team didn't like, and it's basically a chemistry type of issue when we really hadn't seen that in the past with Dinwiddie, because like Brad Beal wanted him in Washington, right? Like players like Dinwiddie. Like I talked with Tyler Bay a few years ago. It's crazy. It's been a few years, but last year, a year and a half, whatever it was, for a story on Tyler Bay's like bio thing. And towards the end of that conversation over the phone, he was telling me how close he is with Colorado alum in the league. And he's like Andre Roberson and Spencer Dinwiddie. And it's like, and I know it's just a tiny example, but it's like people like Dinwiddie. So it's kind of weird when that report came out. And it's even more, it was cool, not really cool, but seeing Dinwiddie talk about it in this manner that he takes a lot of pride in like, hey, I'm not a bad team chemistry guy.
Yeah, yeah, right. And so this is what he had to say about his time in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what hurt the most, right? Like, you've interviewed me several times now, right? Like, I've never bashed Washington. You know what I'm saying? I've never said an ill thing about the team. In fact, I think, the owner or chairman, Ted, I thank Tommy Shepard, GM, and I thank Brad for those three kind of collectively deciding to give me my contract. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have to pay somebody coming off ACL. I'm appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of my time there, right? And I think Wes, although being a first-time head coach, has a wealth of basketball knowledge. So to be bashed out on the way out the door hurt my feelings for sure. I think I'm human, of course. And you got to remember, like, I won a lot of games for them. When we were, 10-1 at one point, and 12-5, whatever it was, when everybody was going crazy and we had all those clutch games, and I was the one hitting the game winners. You know what I'm saying? Look at the Indiana game, 39-6 or something like that, like second game of the season. 2 Boston games, game winners, brought them back in the fourth. Like, I was the one doing that. You know what I'm saying? And that's back when I wasn't playing back-to-backs, and my knee may swell up a little bit and things like that, because I was only 7 months post-op, something like that. You know what I mean? And I was fighting through for those guys. And when the role changed and they wanted me to pass more because they felt like I was scoring a lot, I did that. I took my foot off the gas scoring-wise, because that's what they felt like the team needed to get, Pope and Kuz and them shots. And I said, look, I already got paid. This is about y'all trying to, get the shots that y'all need, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, to get kind of kicked out the door was a wild feeling. I hadn't really experienced that before. But I still have nothing ill to say other than, yes, it hurt my feelings. And, but just like with anything else, you become cautiously optimistic about your new situation. And so far, it's a great fit. I love what they asked me to do here, which is, like I said, get in the paint. And, I'm going to continue to do that and try to continue to be of service.
A lot of times people want to do the thing that the Warriors are kind of doing right now, where you're like walking and chewing gum at the same time, where you have like the veteran players that can win now, and then you're bringing along the young guys too. Like, every team wants that, like, okay, we can win now, but we also have this young core we're bringing around. Like, I feel like all fans want that. And want to talk about, at the beginning of the season, we were even getting sucked into the, dang, all of a sudden, look at this Josh Green, Moses Brown, Frank Ntilikina. They have this kind of mini young core at the end of their bench, and you get sucked into that. But the problem with a team like that and a team like what the Wizards have is what Dinwiddie was talking about, is that you have all these different roles. You have these guys you're going to try to bring along. You have to get Kuzma shots. Like, you have to feed him shots for development. You have to feed some of these guys, Rui, Denny, you have to feed some of these guys shots. And so it changes some of the roles around and changes what, the coach asks you to do. And it messes things up for other players like Spencer Dinwiddie. And so now he comes into Dallas and they don't have to do that with anybody else. Like, there's nobody else that they're like feed shots to. And now that without Tim Hardaway Jr., with him sidelined, it's even more wide open for him right now. I'm curious how that would change when Tim Hardaway Jr. comes back. But for right now, everything's set right now, and it's been working really well for him. Yeah,
I think I would be curious on if Tim wasn't hurt, how this thing would be playing out. I don't want to do any hot takes of what the summer will look like,
but it's been helpful. Like, right, it's not like that it would be bad if Tim was playing. But it's been helpful that it's now so defined. Tim was kind of like the one guy where you're like, what's his role? He's not like a strict catch and shoot guy, but he also, takes a lot of shots, and I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a little more foggy with him than it is with the rest of the team.
Yeah, and they're at a different spot too. I think the Wizards, when you make that big trade and you trade off Westbrook and you get these pieces in, and it's like, yeah, they were going for it, trying to make the playoff, but they also have the young guys too. So for him, I mean, this quote, there's so many different angles you can take to this quote, but just him, I think there's an emotional side of that quote of it really did hurt his feelings, because it goes back to what we said right before we hit play on that this hasn't been a thing about Dinwiddie. So if you take a lot of pride in being a good teammate and being a good professional, to hear those things about you, it has to piss you off and hurt your feelings. And especially whenever you're coming off the injury like you did, and he feels, he's like, man, I fought for these guys. Like, what did he say whenever he first came to Dallas? he didn't have to play the first 25, 30 games. It's like he wanted to, and he was on this rest plan, not playing back-to-backs and all this stuff. And for him to fight through that stuff and then get that stuff on the way out, it really did hurt his feelings.
So coming up, why has it been such an easy transition for him? Why has it been such a good fit? And what are the Mavericks doing now that they didn't before Spencer Dinwiddie joined the team? We'll talk about that and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Built Bar. It's a protein bar. Tastes like a candy bar. They're delicious. Coconut brownie chunk. Just like, I think changed my life. Right? Did it change your life, Isaac?
Yeah, for the better, yeah.
Changed my life. I have now the go-to bar. I have a go-to snack. I have a go-to thing when I want some chocolate. I tried a Reese's cup with like pretzels in it. They have like this new like big cup with pretzels in it. We're like, okay, let's try this. Honestly, I would rather have the coconut brownie chunk bar than that Reese's cup that I just had. That's insane, but that's how good these bars are. Covered in 100% chocolate. They're good for you as well. Check out the Puffs bars. They have marshmallow in them, 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, 6 grams of sugar in that bar. And you can get them all using the promo code LOCKED15. You get 15% off your entire order. So check it out, built.com. Try all the different bars. Get a mixed box to start because I think everybody's going to be a little different in how they like them. I like the ones with fruit a little bit more. Isaac likes some of the cookies and cream ones a little bit more. All that. So try out a whole bunch of different ones and use the promo code LOCKED15. Built Bar. They're built different. They just are.
Built different.
All right, Isaac Harris. People were clowning me in the YouTube comments because I continued the bit when I do solo pods that I come back from break and say, all right, Isaac.
Maybe I should do that on solo pods.
I continued that over the weekend. I just enjoyed it. It's my favorite bit. Spencer Dinwiddie has been great. And we've been talking, we played the clip in the first segment about how, it hurt his feelings that they were saying things in Washington about how he wasn't a good teammate and how teammates didn't like him. And it reminded me of sort of how Jason Kidd has approached the Mavericks this year. Jason Kidd had heard these things about himself as a coach, how he was too tough and blah 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 and negative. And we've seen him. I mean, we got the drop. We'll play it for the rest of time.
This is a positive world.
He has been incredibly positive and has been incredibly like player friendly and all that through this season. It seems like it's like he took the notes and he shifted, and it's been such a benefit for the Mavs. And I feel like Spencer Dinwiddie is going to take the notes from the Wizards and be like, hey, I'm just going to do what I'm doing and take the notes that everybody's telling. But the thing about the Spencer Dinwiddie quote, what was so crazy is that he was like, all the success at the beginning of the season, that was me. I did that. I was doing those things, right? I was hitting the game winners. I was the one scoring all these points. And then when we decided randomly in the middle of the season, let's change stuff up to get Kuz more shots and Pope more shots and all these other people more shots, everything changed on him.
I chuckled whenever he went that route because that's when the quote turned,
That's bold right there.
It's like, all right, now I'm going to lay it down of like, I hit the clutch shots. I put up 30-something against Indiana and that win the second game of the season. What about those Boston games? He starts reminding the things. And it's like, oh, okay, this has really been on your mind, right? Like that's what
he's been waiting for a chance to do this for sure.
Oh yeah. So
he pulled out all the receipts too. He's like, here's a receipt. This is a receipt. Remember that Indiana game that he like started naming the games.
Yeah, I mean, this has obviously been something on his mind, and seeing those reports and stuff that it had to piss him off. You take you take a lot of pride in your work and especially your relationships, and for that to get tarnished in a way. I mean, how many Mavs fans really did think that about Dinwiddie when he came in, right? I mean, I got a text from somebody that I barely talk basketball with, and they're like, "Hey, Mavericks made a big trade. What do you think about it?" And I, told them my thoughts, and they're like, "Yeah, but is this Dinwiddie guy like a locker room cancer?" I'm like,
oof.
I don't think so. But like, you see some of the, the only headline that you might see about Dinwiddie over the past, few months, and it's like, you kind of hate it for a guy like that kind of got attached to his name, and it had to, it obviously bothered it.
You can go back and look at our trade pod after the trade happened and go look at the comments in there. I'm sure there's people that have said that. And I think a lot of Mavs fans have changed their opinion about Dinwiddie over this last stretch. I see posts every day on Reddit about like, hey, I'm going to eat crow on this one. I love the trade. I'm in on the trade now. Like it's kind of funny how people have changed their opinion, but I appreciate those that have changed and they're like, hey, I'll admit that I didn't like it and now it's been good.
Yeah, and it was just, you go, I quote tweeted, the tweet I sent out right after the trade, and I was like, man, because I mean, I was just like floored at the initial fan reaction on, just one platform of Twitter. And it's like, wow, like it was such a negative reaction from the fan base about trading KP that it really did catch me off guard. And I'm like, so I tweeted, I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm higher on this trade than a lot of the fans are. And the amount of replies on that tweet that's like, help me make sense of this. This is a disaster. Just all of it. It's like, can we give it a chance? Can we just give it a chance? And yeah, I mean, we're 7 games in. There's no, this isn't a victory lap time. We'll really take a victory lap if the Mavericks go into the second round and Dinwiddie's averaging, like 20 something a game in the playoffs coming off the bench. And you're like, let's go. Which quietly, he's averaging 17 points a game right now. That'd be his second highest in his career. He averaged 20 that one season in Brooklyn, but it's fun, man. I mean,
we'll also take the L on the Jason Kidd thing at the beginning of the season too, right? Like, if they go into the second round and he coaches them into the second round, we'll take the L on that one for sure. But
well, yeah,
we can get into that at a later date.
Yeah. That's we'll definitely have things we take our L's on. Sure.
In the last 3 years, only 4 non-Luka Mavs have scored 36 points in a game. Dinwiddie did it over the weekend against the Kings.
I'm gonna guess KP did it 5 times.
KP did do it 5 times, and we started this podcast over twice, so Isaac knows the stat already. Tim Hardaway has done it 3 times. One of those was the Detroit game when his dad was there. I think Luka didn't play in that game. And then Curry did it once. That's it. Only 4 Mavs have scored 36 or more points in a game in the last 3 years. That's wild. So Luka getting help. Dinwiddie has been awesome. And one of the reasons why it's been so easy for him, let's take the last 7 games. The last 7 games for every single team. If we just took the stats from those games, the Mavs are driving 60 times a game. There's usually like 100 possessions or so in a game, right? That's about average. That's a lot. That's a lot of drives. That's a lot of just straight north and south drive to the rim. Number 2 in drives per game is Indiana with 55. The Mavs are driving 5 more times a game than number 2. Number 30 is Denver with 23 drives a game. Like, just think about the stylistic differences between driving 60 times a game and 23 times a game. But before the trade, you take the entire season before Dinwiddie started for the Mavs and actually played his first 7 games. The Mavs are driving 46 times a game. They're driving 14 more times a game. They've added this to their game where they can now attack the basket a little bit more, and they're kicking out on about 40% of those drives. They're kicking out to shooters. They're moving the ball around, and there's been a lot more ball movement based off of just those numbers right there, and based off of Dinwiddie being added to the Mavs.
Dinwiddie's ability to get to the rim has changed so much.
Huge.
And it's clearly part of the role that they're asking him to do. I mean, I think he talked about it in that clip there that it feels like, I mentioned on yesterday's pod, it feels like it's not like it's almost like a Luka type of thing of he's kind of bigger. He's like that 6'5", 6'6" guard, but it's not the quickness really. It's like this craftiness of I can get to the rim any dang time I want to get to the rim.
On Twitter, he said he was 6'6". He responded to somebody, and somebody was like, Spencer Dinwiddie's bigger than I thought he was. And he just responded and said 6'6".
6'6", like 2
which I believe him. In person, he looks a little bit bigger. Like, he looks bigger than you would think. And you're like, man, he's like a wing out there. I mean, he's at least 2 inches taller than Josh Green. Like, you look at him like, dang, if only Josh Green is a little bit bigger as a wing. But he has long arms too, which we talked about as a positive on the defensive end, but it's been a big positive on the offensive end too, because he's not this athlete that's going to jump out of the gym either, but he can still get to the rim and finish around the rim, and he's finishing around guys. Like, he finished a couple times around Sabonis, where it's just like you couldn't tell that Sabonis was bigger than him because his arms were just stretching around Sabonis, around his arms and all that, and getting to the rim. The Mavs are also going to the free throw line a lot more now that they've added Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie has added that to his game, and that's something that I saw a lot of people on Twitter talking about, is that his ability to get to the line has been something that's added to the Mavs. That was one thing a couple weeks ago I lamented about Brunson's game, is that to take the next level for Brunson, he's got to get to the line more. He takes like 2 free throws a game. It's got to be more than that if he wants to take the next step up for him. And Dinwiddie does that with his game. Now, there's things that Dinwiddie doesn't do that Brunson does, but that's one thing that's different.
Yeah, and he was 12 or 13 from the free throw line. He's 10 of 10
huge
from the line in the first half the other day. Just to give you a sense about how much Dinwiddie's driving. So if you break down Luka Doncic's offensive possessions off synergy, jump shots, 53% of Luka's offensive possessions are jump shots. Okay. Around the basket, like shots around the basket for Luka, 18% of his offensive possessions are around the basket. Okay. So let's just do that. 53% jump shots, 18% around the basket. Spencer Dinwiddie, jump shots, 45% of his offensive possessions around the basket, 38% of his offensive possessions in Dallas so far in 7 games are around the basket. Like that is a ton for Luka. 15% of his offensive possessions around. It just goes to show you, like, that's an obvious thing that they're asking him to do. He can do it. He's good at it. And he, like, it's adding a dynamic to this offense of, it's not just having another, creator out there, another ball handler out there that can get his own shot, which he's showing. He can do the sidestep three. He could take a little jumper there, but the guy can get to the rim, and he can get to the rim a little bit better than what Brunson can get to the rim. And he's bigger. He can finish over these guys. So it's just added this element to this offense that they didn't have, pre-KP. But shout out to KP, by the way. Good debut.
Great debut for him.
Happy for him. I hope he finishes the season strong. I hope he finishes the season playing. And let's see, Washington ain't going to go anywhere. But, like, I'm happy for him that he had a good outing.
Yep. Yeah. Saw a couple of Washington Wizards writers saying, well, Wizards won the trade. I'm like, all right, here we go. We're just
won the trade.
Each side is just going to say that after the players have had a good game. Either way.
Yeah.
Coming up, after their win against the Kings on Saturday, Dallas has now erased 19+ point deficits twice in the span of a week. They came back from down 19 2 times against the Warriors and against the Kings. How has this team become so incredibly resilient? We're going to look back over the last couple years and this year to see how it's been different. We'll talk about that and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Bet Online. Football is over, but basketball is full steam ahead right now. The latest props, odds, lines, totals, all that. Check out Bet Online. It's the best spot for all your sports scores, news, and everything this season. Check out NBA odds. They have stuff that you can bet on right now. Chicago Bulls playing in Philadelphia are a 7-point underdog. The Bulls a 7-point underdog. Now they're still missing Lonzo, Caruso, Patrick Williams. Vooch is questionable, I think, so maybe that's part of it. But that Embiid Harden seems to be they're favored in like every game they play in right now. So check that out if you're interested in that line. The Hawks are a 7.5-point favorite against the Pistons. I guess that sounds fine. Spurs 2.5-point favorite at home against the Lakers. Who would have thought that? At the beginning of the season? Who would have thought that the Spurs in March would be a 2.5-point favorite against the Lakers? Check out all that stuff on Bet Online. It's not just basketball. They have hockey, boxing, UFC odds right in front of you with all the good information. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, it's where the game starts. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into this Mavericks team. So the Mavs PR tweeted out this stat, and I was interested and I looked into it more. The Mavs have this season been down by 10 or more points a bunch of times, but they've won 13 games in which they were down by 10 points or more at any point during this game. And a lot of them have come in the last 2 months or so. They've trailed by 21 points against the Warriors. They trailed by 19 points against the Kings, and they came back and won both those games. The Kings game was even without Luka. What was changed about this team? Why has this team been so good now? And we almost feel like, all right, they're down, and you almost feel when you're watching them, okay, I have more confidence in this team that they can actually make this comeback now.
I'm going to say something that some people would be like, hey, this is like cliche or kind of dumb that you're going to credit this to it, because you can go a lot of different angles, right? You can go coaching staff. You can say Luka's been more efficient. You can say whatever.
Well, Luka didn't play in the last game. They were down 19.
I'm just going to put the umbrella up and just do the team chemistry umbrella. I think team chemistry is one of the most underrated things in all of sports. And when you see something special between a team bonding, it means so much. Like what I said on yesterday's pod, but like the whole Memphis thing, like Memphis is like everybody's darlings right now because of how much they love each other. Ja scores 50 and they're all out there like taking the team picture. I love it. Like sign me up for all that. Hook it all up to my veins. I love good team chemistry. And man, this Mavericks team is right up there. Like these guys love each other. Like to see these guys at post game, Dorian Finney-Smith get the water bottle treatment and all the guys hitting him and stuff. What Pinson,
listen to them talk about each other in post game, right? Like, listen, all that stuff is huge.
Like the Mavs have posted the clips, I think it was yesterday on Dinwiddie talking about Theo Pinson, in post game, and he was like joking and stuff about it.
He's not good enough. He's not good enough looking to be in my family was an incredible line from Dinwiddie.
But then, he makes his, his shots, his jokes and stuff. But then on the back end of that quote, was him saying he's the best hype man in the league. Yeah. And to have this guy that is up and, I had a friend of mine who went to Kings game, also over the weekend. He asked me, he's like, hey, who was in the sweatshirt and the stuff that was always standing up? That was like, looked like, it was, he's acting like assistant stuff. Like that's Theo Pinson, man. And like, just to see how they've embraced Dinwiddie, see how much they, when Dinwiddie had the podium, we say podium game, but like the Bally Sports game where he got the headset after the game. And to see the guys come up and hit him and all this stuff, they got nicknames for, Ferrari Doe, like all this, these guys really do like each other. And, a portion of the team, you would see that they loved hanging out with each other. When you saw it in the bubble in 2020, they were a lot of fun and stuff, but it feels like the whole collective team has this. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. with the boot and all is cheering up, we all love Boban and all, but it's bigger than just Boban's your team chemistry mascot that everybody likes. No, it's bigger than Boban now. If something's bigger than Boban,
is that possible?
And I just love what this
Boban
team
is back.
I love what they are collectively. And I think you could even lump in the coaching staff with that too. It feels like Kidd is one of the guys, right? Like the Callie Kaplan, quote about, Kidd saying, he's playing cards with Luka on the plane. There's just, it feels like the whole coaching staff roster and everybody have this collective family team chemistry thing. And I disagree with me all you want, but I think that credits a lot of these things. And when the going gets tough and when you're down 21, who you want to fight for? People who's in your corner. That's who I want to go to battle for. And it's I think that it means so much more than I think of what a lot of us could even imagine.
Absolutely. I'm going to echo everything that you just said. I couldn't have said it better, so I'm going to go a different way. I think that it's also because of the on-court, they have an identity. They have this identity, which is shaped by all that stuff too. All the chemistry and all that, is shaped by this identity. If there was questions about shots and questions about, who's going to do what and where am I going to get my minutes and all that kind of stuff, then their identity as a team is harder to get. I.e. Washington Wizards right now, and everything that Dinwiddie and Bertans have said about the Wizards. This Mavericks team is a really, really good defensive team. That's what they've become, and they can get back into games because of their defense. They get back in games with their defense, and they can just kind of slowly but surely get back. They're not this team's going to go on these crazy offensive runs, but they're going to stop you and get stops and get stops and get stops, and then they'll score on the other end and eventually chip that lead back down. So this year, so far, they've had 13 wins when they were down by 10 points at any point during the game. Last year, they had only 7 wins when they were down by 10 points or more at any point. Their biggest win last year was a 17-point comeback against the Lakers with no LeBron, which is, whatever. 2 years ago, remember when the team was incredible off one of the best offenses we'd ever seen? They came back and won 14 games when they were down by at least 10, and they had a big comeback win against, the Jazz. They were down 22 points. Luka's rookie year, they only did it 4 times. So if you think about those numbers, to me, what that says is this year that the Mavs have done it 13 times, last year 7, the year before that 14, and then Luka's rookie year 4 times. This year and that 2 years ago, you had an identity. 2 years ago, the team was, we're going to be incredible offensively. No one's going to be able to stop us. We have the best offensive rating in NBA history, right? So we can get back into games just solely based on our offense, being able to spread the floor with KP, being able to score with Luka and Curry and Tim Hardaway Jr. doing their thing and all that stuff. You have so much firepower. And then this year it's on the defensive end. And that helps you win games as well, having that identity, knowing what your team is about. Last year was sort of a wash on both. The offense just wasn't as good as it was the year before, so they just didn't have as many comebacks. Their defense was still bad, so it was like, how are we really getting back in some of these games?
Yeah, because you have a foundation now that you build everything on top of. To when Luka's out, you're not just crumbling, and you're like, You're not having to change up your whole game plan. You're not having to rethink things on the fly. You're not having to draw up a whole new offense around, Porzingis trying to get in post touches and where's all the other guys going? No, you just put Dinwiddie into the starting lineup. You're like, we'll keep our same system. We're still going to switch. We're still going to play small ball. We're playing everything the same way. We obviously just don't have our top 5 player in the league in Luka, but them being able to come back against the Kings, I think is a testament to not just team chemistry and all that, but the coaching staff and this system, this identity, the fact that they know who they are, that they can rely on that. And they use that to be able to come back in a game without Luka. It's so fun knowing what this team is. Like,
yes.
I haven't felt this way about a Mavericks team in 3 years. Like, I mean, it feels
I think 2 years ago, I think when they had the best offense in NBA history, I think we felt this way about the team. Like, we felt like there was a confidence. They had just, KP was playing. I felt like we had a confidence, but maybe not as high as it is now. But we felt like that 2 years ago, I think.
I guess pre-bubble KP, that stretch there, if you remember that month or two, and like KP was on a run, and I guess that was the only time where you kind of. But I would say even that though, it's like even when KP was like fully healthy, you still had 2 different styles. Like you still had.
Sure. Yep.
Like, Porzingis, wanting the post touches, like, and when Luka's out, the offense changed a little bit. Like nothing's changing now. Like they are who they are. And now we'll see if what does it lead to success in the playoffs? And one of the biggest things in the playoffs, one of the biggest games is happening tonight against Utah in Dallas. Like this is a massive game, like a huge game. They're 0-2 against Utah this season. They really, really need this game, not just for standings, but when it comes to tiebreakers and all that stuff, like they need this game. And did that factor into Luka not playing against the Kings? Maybe.
Yes.
Gave him a couple extra days. Like we got to get this win against Utah.
I think it did. I think they said, "Hey, sorry, Slovenia fans, but we're gonna rest him against the Kings on a random 4 p.m. game and actually play him against the Jazz." Luka is probable with that left toe. They called it left toe sprain in the injury report today, which is interesting. I thought that was a different verbiage than we had before. Brunson is questionable with a foot contusion. Maxey is also questionable. He's been out for the last 2 games. I expect them both to play. We'll see if they do or not. But Conley sat out against against OKC, but just for maintenance. So it seems like the Jazz are going to be fully healthy coming into this. They did have to play last night in OKC. And they had to play all the way through the game because the Jazz are frisky, or the Thunder are frisky, and they came back and made it like a 9-point game or something like that late. So they had to play all their guys. But this is a big game for the Mavs. We'll see what happens. Now, watch them, sit Luka, and then everything just kind of goes out the window from what we just said. But if the Mavs win this game, they can get to within a half game of the Jazz, which is pretty big. And now the Jazz are only a game. They're only a game and a half, 2.5 out from the Grizzlies. And the Warriors for number 2, which is wild. After the Grizzlies lost, and then the Nuggets once, the Mavs are only a game up on them. There's just all kinds of movement can happen like that. That 2 through 6 in the West is like not set right now. It seems like it sort of is. We kind of settled into it'll be Memphis or Utah for the Mavs, but it's not set yet. So a lot still to move. We'll have that podcast for you right after the game. We'll break it all down. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA, the local experts covering all the biggest stories. Jackson Gatlin has us on the show, I think. One of us on the show today. And so you can hear from us. Go to the Locked On NBA. I host on Thursdays. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.